the garden that started it all. The morning sun spilled across the rows of wildflowers, catching the dew like diamonds. My garden wasn't just a patch of land. It was a decade of work, love, and quiet battles with weeds. The locals called it the meadow, a small slice of peace tucked between the manicured lawns of Maplewood Estates. I was sipping my coffee when the rumble started. At first, I thought it was thunder. But then I saw her, Karen, the head of the HOA, standing at the end of my driveway with her clipboard, her sunglasses reflecting pure disapproval. Behind her, a bright yellow bulldozer idled, ready for orders. "Good morning," she said in that clipped tone she used when pretending to be polite. "You were notified that your wildland violates HOA landscaping regulations. We've decided to clear it for additional community parking." I nearly dropped my mug. "That's my property, Karen. You can't just..." But she waved her clipboard like it was a royal decree. The board voted. "It's common ground now." I ran to the fence line, shouting over the engine noise. "You have no right. That's protected land, part of the original wetland zone. You'll destroy it." Karen smirked. "Protected? Don't be dramatic. It's weeds and bugs." The bulldozer roared forward. Soil tore open, flowers crushed under its treads. Birds scattered from their nests. My heart felt like it was being ripped from the earth along with the roots. Neighbors peeked out from their windows, but did nothing. In Maplewood Estates, no one stood up to Karen. By the time the machine stopped, half my garden was gone. She stood there proudly, hands on her hips, surveying the wreckage. "We'll finish the lot tomorrow. Be grateful. You'll finally have somewhere decent to park." That night, I sat in my shed, staring at the ruined field under the moonlight. The scent of crushed lavender still lingered in the air, but anger burned stronger than sorrow. I opened my old binder, the one with every document from when I first bought the land. My late husband, a biologist, had helped me register the property under the state's Protected Native Habitat Program. Karen had no idea what she'd done. The bulldozer might have crushed my garden, but she'd just bulldozed her way into a federal violation. I smiled for the first time that night. The warning letter. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of construction again. Karen and her team were back, laying gravel over what used to be my butterfly sanctuary. I walked outside holding a folder of papers. "Karen, you need to stop this now. You're breaking state environmental law." She turned, annoyed. "Oh, you again. Listen, the HOA has authority over common property, and the board already voted." End of story. I opened the folder. Except this isn't common property. Section 14C of the deed and the state registry clearly mark this zone as protected wetland. Any alteration requires a state permit. You don't have one. Her smirk faltered, but only for a moment. "We'll handle that later," she said, brushing me off. "You're holding up progress." I recorded everything on my phone as the crew continued dumping gravel. I called the Department of Environmental Conservation and filed an urgent complaint. The agent I spoke to sounded serious. "If that's true, ma'am, it's a major violation. Expect an inspector within 48 hours." That night, I printed photos, timestamped videos, and copies of every HOA notice Karen had sent me. I knew she thought I'd cave, like everyone else. But she had just declared war on protected land, and I had the paperwork to prove it. By noon the next day, a white SUV with government plates pulled up. 2 inspectors stepped out, followed by a county sheriff. Karen rushed out of her SUV in a panic, clipboard in hand. "Is there a problem?" she asked sweetly. The lead inspector held up a badge. "We received reports of illegal land modification on a registered conservation property." He pointed at the gravel lot. "Who authorized this?" Karen laughed nervously. "The HOA did, of course. It's community land." I stepped forward. "Actually, it's my land, legally documented and protected. You've destroyed an active pollinator zone and wetland." The inspector flipped through my papers, nodding slowly. "She's correct. This area has been under protection since 2013. Any disturbance carries heavy penalties." Karen's face drained of color. "This must be a misunderstanding." "It's not," the sheriff said, stepping forward. "Until this is sorted, you'll need to halt all construction immediately." The bulldozer operator shut off his engine, glancing nervously at Karen. The inspectors began taking soil samples and photos. One of them shook his head. "This will be expensive to fix." Karen turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "You called them?" I smiled faintly. "You left me no choice." As they taped off the area with bright yellow ribbon, I realized the tide had turned. For once, Karen's clipboard held no power. But I also knew this wasn't over. HOA Karen never backed down easily, and something told me. She was already planning her next move. Karen's counterattack. For 2 days, construction stopped. The inspectors roped off my property with bright yellow tape and left warning signs. Do not enter. Protected habitat investigation. I thought that was the end of it. I should have known better. By the weekend, the HOA held an emergency meeting in the community hall. The moment I walked in, I could feel the tension. Karen stood at the front, her arms crossed, a slideshow flickering behind her. Residents, she began. As you've all seen, our parking improvement project has been sabotaged by misinformation. She clicked the remote, showing pictures of my damaged garden. This property owner falsely claimed the land was protected, causing unnecessary government interference and halting our community progress. The room murmured. My stomach twisted. I stood. That's not misinformation. Karen, you destroyed a registered conservation zone. The state confirmed it. Karen smiled tightly. Oh, we'll see about that. According to new HOA maps, the boundaries were redrawn last year. Your so-called wetland technically falls under HOA jurisdiction now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had fabricated maps to cover her tracks. Those aren't official, I snapped. You can't just redraw boundaries. Oh, but the board can, she said sweetly. And we did. We're filing a complaint against you for obstructing community development. People began whispering. Some sided with me. Others just wanted the drama to go away. I felt the walls closing in, but I refused to flinch. After the meeting, I confronted her in the parking lot. You think you can rewrite laws and get away with it? Karen leaned against her SUV, smiling that smug, icy smile. You're fighting the HOA, dear. We always win. And by the time the state finishes its investigation, this place will already be paved. I took a deep breath. You underestimated me once. Don't do it again. That night, I called the state environmental officer I'd spoken with earlier, forwarding every fake document Karen had presented. He sounded alarmed. This isn't just a civil violation anymore. Tampering with state maps is fraud. The next morning, unmarked cars rolled into the neighborhood. 2 agents in suits walked straight into the HOA office, while Karen stood outside pretending to make phone calls. I watched from my window as they boxed up her files and computers. By sunset, the rumor had spread. Karen was under federal investigation. But I didn't celebrate yet, because as the agents left, Karen glanced at my house, her expression dark and furious. She mouthed the words, "This isn't over," and something told me she meant it. The reckoning. The morning the agents returned, the neighborhood felt unusually quiet. No lawnmowers, no gossiping neighbors, just the soft hum of government. SUVs pulling up to the HOA office. From my porch, I watched Karen pacing outside, her phone pressed to her ear, face pale but defiant. She still hadn't learned. 2 agents from the Department of Environmental Conservation and 1 from the Federal Wetlands Protection Bureau approached her. I couldn't hear what they said, but I saw the moment it hit her. Her shoulders stiffened, her jaw dropped. They handed her a folder thick with documents and legal citations. She tried to argue, waving her clipboard like a shield. But this time no one listened. Later, I learned what was inside that folder: a cease and desist order, a $250,000 restoration fine, and a pending charge for falsifying environmental records. Her redrawn maps had been traced back to a template downloaded from a real estate website, clearly altered to match her fabricated claim. By noon, workers were removing the gravel she'd laid. Inspectors marked off replanting zones and erosion barriers. For every wildflower she had destroyed, the HOA was now legally required to plant 2. Karen's SUV sat in her driveway all afternoon, but she didn't come out. The woman who once strutted through the neighborhood like a queen now hid behind her curtains. That evening, the HOA held an emergency meeting without her. The remaining board members voted to remove her as president. The motion passed unanimously. When I arrived home, a few neighbors approached me. "We're sorry," one of them said softly. "We should have spoken up sooner." I smiled faintly. Better late than never. The next morning, I woke to the sound of life returning to my land. State biologists were planting native flowers and setting up new habitat signs. A small wooden post now stood at the edge of my property. Protected Habitat, Federal Conservation Zone, no entry. It felt like justice. A week later, a letter arrived from the state. They offered to expand the protection zone, ensuring the HOA could never touch the area again. I signed it without hesitation. As I watched the sun set over the newly restored meadow, butterflies began to return, tiny flashes of color fluttering above the blossoms. It felt like my husband's memory had finally been defended. Across the street, Karen's house had a for sale sign. I heard she was leaving town, her reputation in shambles. For the first time in years, Maplewood Estates was quiet and peaceful. I knelt by the flowers and whispered, "We did it." The garden swayed gently in the evening breeze, almost as if it was answering back.